Susan Sontag once said, "Interpretation is the revenge of the intellect on art." I love that phrase because it goes to the very heart of what I experience art to be. It starts with an idea. At this point, what emerges in my mind is more like a presence. You know, I do imagine the presence of this final piece rather than a specific look to the piece or a very literal idea. It's never really a literal idea anyway. But the physical piece itself starts with a lot of physical work, a lot of cutting and pasting and sanding and scraping and all of that. And for me, that's a great way of knowing what I'm dealing with. So this is basically a base coat. Just so I can see the form. As an artist, I keep spending my time making these objects. You know, it's a very physical kind of thing. But this object is not art, it's a thing. What happens between this object and the viewer, whatever happens between the two in that space, is the art experience. As an artist, what you're really focusing on is not creating a beautiful object, but what that object is likely to do on the viewer. And you can control it only up to a point. So as an artist, you try very hard to control that object in the process of production as much as you can. But then you let it go, and the viewer who's engaging that object begins to bring his or her own experience to it. So it's really 50-50. The outer shape of this painting has a lot to do with the actual content of the painting. These are not the traditional rectangles or squares. They have very distinct shapes. And those distinct shapes are less about gestural abstraction, and they're more about really movement movement of light or shadow. One of the curious aspects of these paintings is the fact that they cast actual shadows, and the shadows are not incidental, they have shapes. They inform us about the angle of these surfaces. I have a very strong sense of light and dark, and I use colors mostly for their value. In other words, whether they're dark or light, where they are on that spectrum of light and dark. I really truly believe in communicating the meaning, whatever the truth of this piece is, communicating it in a way that's not literal, that's not interpretation based, if you will, but experience based. In my personal story of growing up in Turkey, there's a weird combination of authoritarianism, political unrest, coercion, aggression, violence, etc. around me, and a form of mental illness or psychological disorder very close to me in my family. The stories and details are not relevant because we all experience such things, but the effects of all that have been profoundly relevant to my work. Interestingly, the effects are always the same, I think. Whether experienced in the broader society or in the family, the effects are always crushing, shattering, dislocating for good. You never perceive the pieces of your reality as seamlessly continuous. Instead, you're always expecting these sudden shifts or disruptions, etc. Perhaps like the shapes of this painting, jolted out of place, pulling in different directions, but still holding together barely. My emotional strength and resolve that keeps this reality together is tenuous. And honestly, I think art allows me to see this clearly, because in life, I think it's easier to be in denial. My work, I think I would like to use the word distilling. I don't think I'm abstracting so much as I'm distilling, sort of eliminating elements of reality that are not essential to the experience of the artwork. The image in this painting is the image of a vent through which some kind of light is shining. It's based on an actual metal vent, a hardware store, like 35-cent vent, that I physically manipulated and painted and so forth, and actually stuck into a work early on in my career to see what it would do. It's got this weird magnetic, mysterious power. It's sort of like an interface. At times, it speaks of authority, I think. At other times, it's like conscience itself, an ever-present image that's a witness. The reason I think we make art and then maybe even view art is that it operates in this gap, this huge gap between reality and the imagination. At least for me, that gap is so large that something has to bridge it, something has to fill it. And art is a way to do just that. And I think art gives just the right amount of balance between reality and imagination, and brings sanity to the whole thing. I think without that, one runs the risk of losing one's grip, either on reality or on one's imagination, which is absolutely essential for our survival. I really don't know when a painting is going to be finished, when I've just started it or when I'm even halfway through it. Something is developing in front of you and you need time to understand where you are. It's like being in a foreign place. Along that process, you leave your original ideas, if not behind, close to you but off to the side. And you really begin to look at what's developing in front of you. There are now possibilities. There is a whole new world in front of you. And you ought to be able to have enough self-confidence in the process to develop the possibilities that are emerging in front of you and allow the images and textures and so forth to do their own thing. So I hope that at this point in this painting, where I decided that it's finished, it has enough power and enough raw truth to suggest what I experience in my mind to the viewer. Beyond that, it's out of my control, and that's how it should be.